So we're going to talk about the time that we're living in right now, which is the period as we get ready for the holiday of Passover. The holiday of Pesach is probably one of the most celebrated holiday amongst the Jewish people. In fact, go to any supermarket around the United States and have a Passover display. It's just something that Americans display and Americans sell and Americans buy. Passover is coming, we have to have the Passover foods. I always say unfortunate for most Americans that they think that the Passover food is the stuff they sell in the supermarket. There's so much better Passover food out there than the jarred gefilte fish and some hard sugar-coated half-moon candies or some old stale chocolate. But aside for that, Passover really is a very beautiful and spiritual holiday. Possesses within it tremendous amount of good feelings and empowerment, which I think is why we celebrate it so much. Whether most of the people know it or not, they're celebrating the holiday because it contains within it this intense spiritual energy. What exactly is this holiness or this energy that Passover contains within it that we're celebrating? And so we have to look at the time of year when Passover falls out. One of the most common questions I get is, it seems like Passover is early this year, or Passover is late this year. What's going on? And the Jewish calendar make up their mind, is it April or is it March? Is it early March or late March? Is it early April? Why does it keep on changing every year? And so the Jewish calendar follows the cycles of the moon. Now, the cycles of the moon have 11 days less than the solar yearly cycle. The solar cycle has 365 days, and the lunar cycle, annual cycle, has 354 days. Now, Passover has to fall out in the spring. So while in Judaism we follow the cycles of the moon, we also have to pay attention to the agricultural cycles, which follows the sun. So we actually have a combination of the lunar and the solar cycles. The Passover holiday must fall out in the spring. Now, if every year we follow only the cycles of the moon, the lunar cycle, and then after 3 years, we're going to be 33 days behind the solar cycle, right? We lose 11 days every year. So after 3 years, so now Passover is kind of towards us touching the spring season. If you have, let's say, 6 years, so now you're 66 days behind. So now Passover will fall out in the middle of the winter. But Passover has to fall out in the spring. And so in the Jewish calendar, we have a leap year. Every 2 or 3 years, an entire month is added to the calendar. Sometimes you have 12-month years, and sometimes you have 13-month calendar years. And this is what happens. So if Passover begins to fall back to 33 days, so we add a month. Now it's back in track. Only 30 days were added. Now it's just 3 days behind. So 2 years later, we added a month. And so this is the way it works. So the Jewish calendar is going back and forth in terms of how we compare it to the English calendar. Although the Gregorian calendar is following the sun, so it's really two separate calendars, but only because we compare it to the English months, April and March. This is why it seems like Passover is moving. The Passover really always falls out on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. Every year, it's on exactly the same day, the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. In the English months, it changes, but the Hebrew month, it's always the same day. What is significant about the month of Nisan that the Passover holiday falls out in? The month of Nisan is known as the month of miracles, or the month of redemption, because the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt during this month. And we also have another very important month on the Jewish calendar year, and that is the month of Tishrei, the month that the Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, Jewish New Year, falls out in. So in fact, there are actually 4 New Years that we celebrate throughout the year. We celebrate the New Year that we know about. We celebrate the New Year for the trees. We celebrate the New Year for kings, at least in the times when there were kings. And we celebrate the New Year for the months. So we have 2 New Years that we celebrate, the New Year for years and the New Year for months. Okay? If you look into the Torah, you'll see that the Torah calculates the months, and it says that Nisan, the month that Passover falls out in, is the first month. Well, it's not. We just celebrated the high holidays 6 months ago. So the Nisan, the holiday Passover falls in, should be the 6th month. Why does it call the first month? Because we follow, as you mentioned, 2 different cycles. We follow the Gregorian cycle, the solar cycle, and the lunar cycle. We follow the cycle of the agricultural cycles and also that of the moon. So the annual cycle is following the agricultural cycles. The fall, winter, spring, and summer. And then we have the lunar cycles, which is following the cycles of the month. Why is this important to know? Because there's a fundamental difference between the month that we're currently in, the month that the holiday of Passover falls in, and the month that the Jewish New Year begins in. I'd like to highlight a couple of these fundamental differences that will help us understand the significance and appreciation of the holiday of Passover. The month of Nisan, that the holiday of Passover falls in, helps us understand and helps us appreciate the greatness of God. The month of Tishrei, that the high holidays fall out in, the Jewish New Year, helps us appreciate that there is a God. So when it comes to understanding God, there are a few stages. The first stage is to know even that there's a God. Then let's understand everything we can about God. Think about if you want to get to know somebody, right? So first you have to know that this person exists. Now let me learn a little bit about this person. You're never going to say, let me learn about a person that I don't know about. So let's just say you hear about a certain magician, actor, actress, celebrity, whatever it is. Now let's say, let me find out, what is this person's stats? Where did they act in? And so on and so forth. So the same thing is also with God. We know now that there's a God exists. Now let me learn a little bit about God. The high holidays, the month of Tishrei, tells us that God exists. Period. There is a God. But we know nothing about this God. In fact, this God is hidden from us. This God is enclosed within nature. I see that the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening. I see the different seasons. When I see the world around me, the trees, the grass, the sky, the clouds, all these beautiful things around me, I see a natural world. And I come to the conclusion there must be a creator to this world. But who is this creator? I don't see this creator. I don't understand this creator. It seems like nature. Life is just going on. This is the way things work. There's no breakthrough. There's no unbelievable things that is happening. This is just the natural world is functioning on a very orderly fashion. That tells me that there's a creator, and that's all I know about the creator, that a creator exists. What about this creator? Okay, then we have to dig a little bit deeper. Let me understand this creator. What motivates this creator? Why does this being every day make sure that the sun rises, that the sun sets? Why is this creator so concerned about what happens and how the world functions, that everything should happen in its time and its space, all the galaxies should move at their speeds and they should not bang into each other? Why is the creator concerned? Okay, so now we have to dig a little bit deeper. Who is this creator? What is this God all about that is making this world? So sometimes things happen that we say, whoa, where did that come from? Who made that happen? When those things happen, we say, wait a second. The world does not function just on a natural order. There's something more that's going on over here. And then we feel almost the hand of God. We feel something supernatural is happening in our life. Everything is going exactly according to plan. We're very happy. Everything is great. Something unbelievable happens to us, unbelievable stroke of luck, as we call it, but it's really a miraculous thing that happened to us. Then we say, wait, somebody's watching over me. Someone's concerned about me. Unfortunately, we don't always see it when something positive happens to us. We see it more when something negative happens to us. Everything's running its course normal. All of a sudden, something bad happens to us. Boom, we get banged over the head, right? Our life is turned upside down. A tragedy happens. Where did that come from? Who caused that to happen? God is so mean. God is terrible. All of a sudden, we recognize a God. We recognize the hand of God, but in a negative way. But these things also happen in a positive all the time. We just don't always realize it when it's a positive thing that's happening to us. But the point is that we have the way the world functions on a natural daily basis. And then we have these things that happen supernaturally, unexpectedly. Those unexpected moments is a time to reflect about the hand of God or the relationship that I have with God. So the first step is I know that God exists. I live every day. I wake up every morning. I go to sleep at night expecting that I will wake up in the morning. I want to say that if we don't wake up in the morning, we'll be very upset. But unfortunately, if we don't wake up in the morning, we don't know how we'll feel. So, but we go to sleep at night knowing that we will get up in the morning. Why? What's the guarantee? Who said? Because we live in a natural world. Of course, that's going to happen. But when we wake up in the morning, we think about it. Wait a second. This is unbelievable. I can feel myself. I can breathe. I can feel. I can touch. I can make a coffee. This is an unbelievable thing that just happened just this morning. I'm up. Whew. Wow. Who made sure I'm able to wake up? Who said I'm important enough to wake up? This is God. So if you think about it, the natural world is that we recognize as a God, and the things that happen in the daily basis helps us understand this God. And that's what the month of Nisan is. The month of Nisan, when God took us out of Egypt, that we're currently in, as it comes closer to the holiday of Passover, we recognize that not only does this world function on a natural way and that God exists, but now is the time for us to delve a little bit deeper and build a relationship with God, because now we feel we can touch the divine. We're in tune to it because the hand of God is right there touching our shoulder, picking us up and holding us and bringing us to a redemptive state, taking us out of the state of slavery, of bondage in Egypt, taking us, bringing us a redemptive state of freedom and wholesomeness. So the month of Nisan, in contrast to the month where the high holidays falls out in, helps us really connect to God on a much deeper level. We begin the year recognizing there's a God. That's a very important first step. But as we journey through the year, we come to this point, the halfway mark, and now it's time for us to delve a little bit deeper, to feel the divine. So what happens when the world all of a sudden changes? What happens is that we recognize that there's something that is above nature, something that is supernatural. Not only do we recognize that, we actually also understand and realize we can actually tap into this supernatural level. we do not have to function only according to the natural order of things, but we also have the ability to tap into the supernatural. And that is the feeling that we have to bottle up within us as we come close to the holiday of Passover, as we celebrate the holiday of Passover. What can I do to tap into and to attain a level that is supernatural? How can I live a life that is not confined by the natural order of things? One of the ways to do that is by eating the matzah. That's right. By simply eating the bread of faith, the flour and water concoction that has been baked within 18 minutes. The cracker-like food, which we call matzah, is not just a cracker and not just flour and water. It actually contains within it a tremendous amount of spiritual energy. When we eat the matzah, we somehow tap into the divine, but most importantly, we tap into an aspect within us that's called faith. Think about it for a moment. What's the difference between bread and matzah? Do you know what the difference is? One simple ingredient: time. When you take flour and water, you let it sit for long enough, it's going to begin to rise. Matzah bread is given the time to rise. Matzah is baked right away. Faith is about time. What does that mean? When do we begin to question God? When things take a long time. When something begins to happen, and then there's a time period till it finishes. So we begin to say, where is God in this period of time between these two events? We lose our job, right? A tragedy happens, and it's very bad, until we find a new job. During that period, we question God. But what happens if that happens right away? We lose our job, we find a job. We have faith in God. Our faith was never lost. So in a sense, time is really what goes against our inherent faith in God. When we eat the matzah, we internalize this idea of haste, of doing something quickly, not allowing the anti-faith or the time period to impact us, and we have faith in God. This way, matzah is called the bread of faith. Matzah, by the way, is also called the bread of healing. When we eat matzah, they're physically and spiritually healed. This is why it bothers me. People tell me that they cannot eat matzah. They have what do you call it? Celiac or some other things that people say that they're intolerant to eat. I tell them, eat the matzah. I promise you nothing bad is going to happen. I've seen this. I'm telling you. It ends up increasing your faith. I'm not telling you to eat the whole pound of matzah. You can have a little bit. It only adds health. If God is commanding us to do it, it's going to be healthy for you. Anyway, the point back to this is that matzah is the bread of faith and also the bread of healing, which actually brings us to a very interesting distinction, or another distinction between the holiday of Passover that falls out in the month of Nisan and the high holidays that falls out in the month of Tishrei. During the high holidays, how do we build a connection to God? What do we have to do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to build a connection to God? We have to show up and pray, right? We have to do something. It requires some effort on our part. What happens during the month of Nisan, the holiday of Passover? All we have to do is sit back, recline, and the miracles are going to happen. The month of Tishrei requires our efforts. We have to do something. The holiday of Passover happens. The Jewish people were taken out of Egypt in a miraculous way. They were in bondage, enslaved by King Pharaoh in a place that no slave has ever escaped from. You couldn't leave Egypt. It was an ironclad country. No one could leave the borders. Comes God, takes them out of Egypt, not just one person, not just Moses, not even just Aaron and Miriam, takes all the Jewish people, 7 million people out in one night. Complete, total breakthrough out of Egypt. What happened? This is a miraculous occurrence. So sometimes there are things that happen in nature that requires effort. Then we have the miraculous events, the above nature, the supernatural. What happened during the time that the Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt, that God had to come out and take them out of Egypt in a miraculous way? So we have to go back the moment of creation to understand exactly what happened. Ready for a little deeper teaching now? All right, let's dig a little deeper, okay? God first created the world. God was so excited about this upcoming universe that he's creating. He's going to make a world filled with beautiful hills and valleys, rivers and oceans, deserts. He's going to build a world with all sorts of different types of animals and people. God was so excited. He said, I'm going to reveal myself in the world. And God created the world and shared his light with that world, with his created beings. But God's light was so strong, so powerful, that the vessels that God put the light into, the world that he put his light into, was too limited for God's light. Do you know what happened? It was an explosion. What scientists today call the Big Bang. There was so much godly energy, godly light in these vessels that the vessels cannot contain the light. What happens when you put something inside a box, that the box is not big enough for everything you're putting into the box will break. Now a box is made out of cardboard, so it won't shatter, it'll just break, tear. But if you put something into a vessel that potentially can shatter, it'll explode into many different pieces. If it's a energy that you're putting in there, it'll explode all over the place, like a Chernobyl explosion. It'll expand over cities, acres, miles away. When God created the world, there was so much built up energy in this world that the world could not contain it. There was an explosion of the world. And according to Kabbalistic teachings, the world broke it apart into 266 shards, broken pieces, or also known as broken sparks. These godly sparks were shattered and spread across the world. 210 of those landed in Egypt. The rest are all over the world. Our mission till today is to reveal and to find those hidden sparks. And when we find the last spark, that is the time of the coming of Mashiach. This is why we live all over the entire universe, to find and elevate these hidden sparks that are found within the physical world. According to Hasidic teachings, we have already finished finding all the sparks. We just a little bit more to do, and Mashiach is here. When the Jews were in Egypt, they were busy gathering all these sparks. They found the 210 sparks. At that moment, God took them out of Egypt. They finished their job. In fact, the Torah says that the Jews are not allowed to settle in Egypt anymore. The only reason why we live anywhere is to reveal goodness into the world, to reveal the sparks, right? That's hidden within the world. Once you already accomplish that, you don't need to live there anymore. So once the Jews revealed all the sparks in Egypt, there's no need for them to live there anymore. The job is done. They've cleared out all the spiritual mines, so to speak. There's no need for the army to be there. They've already accomplished their task. So when the Jews were in Egypt, they worked hard and they were able to dig up and to find all these hidden sparks and reveal them, elevate them. The time has come for them to leave Egypt. There was one problem. The problem was that they lived in Egypt for so long that they got used to living in Egypt. True, they gathered all the sparks and that was fantastic. But they got used to living the life of slavery, of bondage. They had a Stockholm syndrome. They could not break out of that cycle of being trapped in the Egyptian culture and the Egyptian way of life. They got so comfortable there that they were this much away from actually never leaving Egypt. They've sunk to such low levels of spiritual holiness, they almost became like the Egyptians. They forgot who they are. At that moment, God heard the cries of the Jewish people. Moses came telling God, take the Jews out. At the very last second, God said, let's take you out. This is why they left in haste. They didn't prepare for it. God saw if they stay for one more second, they're done. There'll be no children of Israel. There'll be no nation of Israel. God took them out. In the midnight, grabbed them, and they fled. They ran out. We feel sometimes trapped. We feel a moment, a little opening that we have to break out of that trap. We don't walk away, we run away. Why do we run? That's the only way we can escape that moment of control that the person has on us, or that thing has on us. If we have a certain habit that we're trying to break, we can't walk away from it slowly, we have to stop it. Ask an alcoholic, ask an addicted smoker, or any other addiction. You have to stop cold turkey. Not easy. That's the way to do it. So, the Jews were in Egypt. They were so close to the brink of becoming merged and infused and one with the Egyptians. God said, I have to take you out of Egypt. How did God take us out of Egypt? Not with an angel that God normally does to send. God normally sends a helper to help God fulfill whatever it is that God needs to do. When it comes to escaping the Egypt, God himself came because it needed a special supernatural influence in order to get us out of that state of mind that we were in, that state of being. Only God himself can take us out of there. So what is the state of the exile in Egypt? It means that we were in a state of utter control by the Egyptians. True, we've also accomplished a spiritual task by elevating those sparks, but still we were controlled by the Egyptians. God had to pull us out, take us out of Egypt by himself, not with an angel. Nothing that has to do with nature can take us out of that state we were in. It had to be a completely super above nature, unprecedented event that will take us out of that state of being. Till today, we're celebrating that miracle. The miracle of Exodus of Egypt is an unprecedented miracle of biblical proportions. It has not happened again. But at that moment, we had to have it. This event happens to us every single day, but more specifically on the holiday of Passover. What is the mitzvah of Passover? There are three mitzvahs that we have to do. We have to mention the matzah, eat the bitter herbs, and talk about the Pesach sacrifice. Right? These are three things. Pesach, matzah, maror. What are these three things? We have to remember that we ourselves have our limitations, that we are bound, that control us, that limit us. We have to break through the limitations and make sure we have our own personal exodus. That was a holiday of Passover and tells us that. We have to be willing to sacrifice the Pesach offering, meaning to say, being willing to give up something that is dear and near to us, but yet it is controlling us. We have to break out of it. We also have to adapt a culture of humility. We have to get rid of our own ego. We have to get rid of who and what we think personifies us and recognize that I'm so much more than just that. That ego is so limiting. Think about it. If I come and say to my spouse, thank you for dinner. It's a very nice thing to say. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful thing. But if that's all I say, then I haven't been grateful. Because that's all. I did 1,000 things for you. That's all you're saying thank you for is for dinner. In other words, if I say, God, thank you for allowing me to wake up this morning, that's a beautiful thing. But if I don't thank God throughout the day for anything else, I'm missing the point. You do 1 billion things for me every single day. 1 billion thanks every day. Just thanks for waking up. That's unbelievable. But thank you for allowing me to eat, to go to the bathroom, for the food, whatever it is. There's 1 million things to be thankful for. So, what does this have to do with our discussion? When someone has an ego, they're saying, look how great I am. You think about it, it's so limiting. Why are you great? Because you're the CEO. Why are you great? Because you have brains. If that's all you have, then you're nothing. That's one thing you have. Fine, great, very nice. But humility, in other words, when a person, think about it for a second, okay? Who that you know is smarter? The person that speaks a lot or the person that's quiet more? Right? Usually the person that says less, you actually think higher of them, or you think that they're smarter than the person that speaks more. Why? Because the person that speaks, that's what they know, everything they're talking about. But the person that is not speaking, they can know so much more. We just don't know what's inside of them. Right? So humility, in a way, actually highlights how great we are. It doesn't limit how great we are. Now, the point of humility is not to bring out how great we are. The point of humility is to recognize and be grateful for everything that we have. It's not about me. It's not about the things that I've accomplished. It's about the things that I have yet to accomplish. Let me not talk about the things that I have done. I have so much more to do. Big deal what you have done. Who cares? There's a million other things you still have to do. When Moses was the most humble person on the face of the earth, did he not know what he had accomplished? Did he not know that he was the one that brought the Torah down from on Mount Sinai? Of course he knew. But he says that's nothing. There's so much more that I could have done, that I should really be doing. So that's what humility means. An ego is someone who celebrates what they have done. Humility is someone who recognizes how much more they can do. Comes the holiday of Passover and says, it's very nice what you've done. It's very nice what you are, who you are. But there's so much more that needs to be accomplished. Comes Passover and says, this is going to be the springboard for me to enter into a new phase of my life. I'm not going to allow the previous things that held me hostage control me anymore. I am going to break through it. I am going to live a life that is God-centered, that is other-centered. I'm going to live a life where I could truly expand myself beyond my limitations. That's done through humility, through eating the humble bread called matzah, the bread of faith, bread of humility. Because that helps me remember that it is so much more fuel I have within me, so much more power I have within me that I can share that, and I need to share that with the world to reveal godliness on the world with those around me. And this is why we wish each other a kosher and a happy Pesach. The word kosher is an acronym For kemoitze shalol rav, I will find the abundance of bounty. When someone goes to war and they take over a country, there's a lot of loot, a lot of bounty that is there. Spiritually, there's a lot of hidden bounty. When I go to war with myself, so to speak, with my inclinations that are holding me back, but when I win the war, I can reveal all the spiritual bounty that's there. Kosher symbolizes this. When we eat kosher, we have the power to reveal that incredible amounts of spiritual energy that's hidden within there, that bounty that is hidden. This is why we say, Shavik kosher, you should find the power within you and reveal it and live by it. And with this, we certainly live a happier, more complete, more full, and more humble life. That's today's lesson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Now,
Bye.
some important